Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Monday. Brand new week it is. And welcome, of course, to Aquarius Rising Africa. And from Morné, Brice, welcome you too. I hope you had a fantastic weekend. And I hope you're happy and well. We are flooding out here at the moment, I have to say. So it's supposed to be spring, but doesn't look so springish. It looks more like floodish. So yeah, crazy rains we had on the weekend and still going on right now. Anyway, happy Monday, everybody, and great to see you. Hello, Scotty. Hello, Dragonfly and JB. Rants again. Okay, nice to see you guys, everybody. And wow, what an interesting topic this week, right? The Dionysian mystery school or experience. And it's quite gruesome, but wow, very interesting, I have to say, when you think about why they do what they do. It's a little bit macabre, of course, but in their mind, that's what it is. But anyway, Brice, over to
They
you. How are
justify
you?
it. I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm so excited about Nancy Drew in this with you guys. Monday's becoming my favorite day. As I said, I get to sit with my besties from all over the world.
Indeed.
The controller's got nothing on us. We see you.
They can try. And thank you, Brice, for your lovely sticker again. It's so nice to tune into the show. And there is money waiting.
I just have to say, from a very personal point of view, I appreciate my friendship with you guys so much. I feel like we're the three that have taken the most shit. and we look good doing it. So I feel a very special bond with both you guys, and of course all of our friends watching right now, because no matter what they do, they can't stop us from, and we have fun too. It's one thing to talk about these macabre topics and get sad about it, but it's another thing to also just kind of laugh at the situation as well, because demons don't understand humor, right? That's the greatest weapon we have against the darkness, is they don't understand when we laugh at them. It disempowers them, right? So I appreciate being able to do that here with you guys on Aquarius Rising Africa.
Well, we certainly appreciate you too, honey. So thank you for joining us every Monday and Wednesday, basically twice a week. So it's great fun, I must say. And I'm loving the topics that we're covering. And yeah, it's always good to dive into these things, because to realize what's been going on for so many centuries, really, right under our noses, and we just don't see it, right?
No. And this is a lot of, and I will say too, one thing I've learned through all these different mystery schools is, and especially the one we're going to talk about next week, is that they're constantly learning more and more and more about these practices. And I want to make something clear, because somebody said something on my channel about like the Hellenistic time, because traditional academia will place these mystery schools beginning in what they call the Hellenistic period. Now, I know we talked a lot about Tartaria on your channel as well as my channel, and I think for all of us watching, we understand that the time periods they're giving us might not be accurate to the truth. And I want to just point that out, that even though we don't know if the Hellenistic world was really a time period or not, we're not really sure because of all the mismatch and with the Tartarian stuff, we don't know. But what we do know is that we have overwhelming evidence that these type of cults started at some point and are still going on. And that's the important part. So I don't want people to get like hung up on when this all happened. The point is that it's happened and it's still happening. And that's where the power lies. So I just wanted to in my research, I will say dates that they give us in academia, but I always say with a disclaimer, like, we don't really know for sure when it transpired. We just know that it did transpire. So I think that's important to specify as well.
Yeah, most definitely. And I mean, the dates and stuff they give us are invariably wrong anyway. So it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. I think we realize that nothing is 100% accurate at this point in time. So we'll, really it's more, it is more about the events. And yes, it does need to coincide somewhat because there does need to be credibility given to whatever it is we're putting out there. But I think generally we can accept that a lot of the dates, the timelines that they have given us, our history is not very accurate at all. So we will just go with the flow and see where the flow takes us.
Yes. So should we get cracking on?
Yeah.
And I want to say this because I said this on my channel too. Depending on your accent, Dionysus, Dionysus, there's different ways of saying this guy. I've heard in my research, listening to different professors talk about this, different people with different accents are going to say this name differently. I know we got some shit with the Thoth, but I laugh because of the people that were alive during this time were to all of a sudden boop appear again. They probably tell us we were all pronouncing it wrong. So I don't want people to get hung up again too much with the pronunciations.
Because if we think about it, if we think about it, in those days as well, they were speaking very different language. They were speaking the ancient languages. So chances are they weren't speaking South African English.
They weren't speaking American English either. That was not around yet. Well, and it's like, I pointed this out. Like you guys say tomato, I say tomato. Both are correct pronunciations depending on the dialect where you're from in the world, right? So I don't want people to get hung up on that either. That's not the point. The point is what this entity represented to the people that worshipped him. And again, as I said last week, this is the polar opposite of what we see with the Ulyssian mystery schools, which are still my favorite. I have a very tender spot for the Ulyssian because it was volunteer basis. Everybody knew what they were doing. It was only adults. It was all about your inner work. They weren't actively hurting you. And it's like what we do in yoga today. This is the polar opposite, where the Ulyssian mystery schools were saying you got to go within your shadow side to heal yourself. And in fact, with the Dionysian mystery schools, I even wrote down, I got to find it where I wrote it down, but they believe these people that follow Dionysus, from what we understand, were kind of pissed off to be human anyway. They were like, to me, like spoiled children. They were like, I didn't pick to be here in this body, so I'm going to use the desires of my flesh and my body to kind of give in to nature in order to try to escape the pains of nature. Whereas,
isn't that interesting? Sorry, if I can just chime in there, if you don't mind. Isn't that interesting? Because what they worship nature, they worship Mother Nature, right? But at the same time, they feel like Mother Nature, or nature, if you will, has kept them trapped in their bodies. So they use
no accountability, no responsibility.
Exactly. But then by the same token, where I find it interesting with them is they will use their own concepts, right, around that, for example, and they apply it to themselves. So there's quite a bit of honesty in that, right, just within that self, because they will then use nature, each other, sacrifices, dismemberment, whatever, to destroy themselves too. And they know what they do. It's interesting.
Well,
sorry, I didn't mean
that
to.
Was one thing one commentator said about this is that they kind of paraphrased what this girl, that she was brilliant the way she summed it up. She was like, in order to experience the carnal pleasure in the moment, they were willing to face the consequences later on, and so I thought that was very fascinating. So
when they enter the cult, they know, or when they become initiated, they know exactly what they're letting themselves in for. They kind of know. Yeah.
But they kept it.
Sorry, carry on.
Oh, no, it's okay. That was the originator. This is the original cult that started secret societies. It wasn't the Ulyssian mystery schools, because again, I want to say, even though some of the teachings of the Ulyssian mystery schools were not were only done in the temple, everybody knew it was there. It was they took a public walk up the road. It was very, people knew who the initiates were. But with the Dionysian mystery schools, this was initiation through lineage, through the elite circles. It was a secret. So it's mirrored our controllers today. Like, they know what they're doing. They know what's going, LOL, they kind of wink at each other. Like, they know what's going on, but the world didn't for a very long time. Now the world does know, the secret's up. But this is the an original nefarious starting point of these secret societies. It was also called the cult of souls, because they like collect, and we've heard that, right, from like Jesse and other people, this collection of like souls and taking what isn't yours, you know. And so should we get into who Dionysus was?
Yeah, for sure.
People are like, who the hell is this dude? So, and I've talked about Dionysus before on my channel, because this is where we get the practice of Mardi Gras in New Orleans. It's an homage to Dionysus. All right, so he is the god of wine, orchard, fruit, vegetation, fertility, festivity, theater, ritual madness, insanity, and religious ecstasy. Y'all. I mean, it kind of sounds like a good time on a Friday night if there wasn't human sacrifice involved in all this. But yes, so Dionysus was also known as the liberator, because his energy brings a sense of freedom of self-consciousness to his followers. This reminds me, so this is Lucifer is the light bearer. The light illuminates the darkness, therefore liberating you. So I saw a lot of correlation between the two. The Romans knew this person as Bacchus. So if you hear of the cult of Bacchus, it's the same thing. He's known to carry a specter that was covered in ivy and honey. And although the specter could be used as a benevolent wand, it was mostly used as a weapon to destroy those who opposed the cult and this secret mystery school. The ultimate point of his followers were to become empowered and possessed by him. So I don't think it takes a rocket scientist for people on this channel. For a person who's not familiar with this, they might not see the correlations here, but I think most of our friends see huge correlations between these ancient practices with what's happening behind closed doors, from what we heard from people like Jesse. This wanting to be possessed by these spirits in order to obtain earthly power and material wealth. I mean, one of the most famous members of this cult was Alexander the Great, most famous, and he is the one that is responsible, according to archaeologists, for spreading this cult. So when he went and conquered all of the known world at that time, he was teaching these practices to all of the elite people of all these different countries or territories. So he spread this. So I've said many times before, like, Alexander the Great was nothing but a serial killer, right? And he was a huge cannibal. And so you know, this is quite eye-opening when we see this stuff. Dionysus is known as the transgender. He's known as the Jesus and the dying and rising God. And we're going to get it. This is why I always say the name Jesus does not mean it's not the same person as Yahshua, because Jesus comes from Zeus, of Zeus. That's Jesus's name, of Zeus. Dionysus is the son of Zeus, which we're going to get into. So he was considered the twice born, firstborn of Zeus and Persephone. So we learned about Persephone last week with the Elysian. So when he was in spirit form, he was born of Persephone. But when he became human, a demigod, he was born of Zeus and a woman named Semele. She was human. So Semele was his mother, who again was human. Sounds familiar, right? Like Mother Mary and, you know, holding God's child, right? Which we know from the missing books of the Bible that Yahshua was conceived of Joseph and Alma Mary. Like, he was conceived by two humans. This situation is very eyes wide shut. If you guys have seen that movie, there was a scene they cut out where a woman was being raped by a demon. Okay, so this is non-consensual. So that's where they're trying to, this is definitely the origins of what we see from the church today. It's not the origins of the teachings of Yahshua. I want to be very clear about that. As you've said, Shanti, the church is the infiltrator. This cult is the infiltrator to what was actually created by Yahshua and Magdalene. So I want to be clear about that. It is said that Semele was a high priestess of Zeus. So she was a human who was a priestess of Zeus, very religious. Zeus fell in love with Semele. He would watch her do rituals and make blood sacrifices. And these blood sacrifices that she would make, she would use a bull and sacrifice a bull to Zeus. Now, what's interesting is that that's what Alexander the Great would do before he went into battle. He would always sacrifice a bull. The bull, for those who remember from our Mithra discussion, the bull was important to Mithraism as well. The shedding of the blood of the bull is what saved humanity in Mithraism, right? And so it said that Zeus would shapeshift into an eagle so he could spy on Semele as she bathed. What an effing pervert to shapeshift into a freaking eagle to watch a woman bathe. So anyway, Zeus decides that his attraction to Semele is just too great. His son in the spirit world, Dionysus, wants to come to earth and be part mortal. So he lures Semele into this love affair, Zeus does. Now, in order for Zeus to do this, he has to shapeshift himself into human form. And we're going to get into the shapeshifting because that's a huge part of this cult is shapeshifting. And so he has this affair with Semele. She gets pregnant with Dionysus. And she's just head over heels, like and just enchanted by Dionysus, right? And so she's telling all of her friends that her baby daddy is Zeus, the main god, right? And so Zeus's other lovers in the spirit world get jealous of his relationship with Semele, which, let me tell you, polyamory is not something I would do too. So I kind of feel for those women who got a little jealous. Like, I'm just one man. I don't want any other women involved unless they're going to clean the house or something. That's the only time I'll take a sister wife, is if they're going to be responsible for cleaning the house. But when it comes to romantic relationships, it's just me. So I don't blame that's very human of these like goddesses of the spirit world to be like, who's this bitch, you know? So they, this one of the lovers of Zeus from spirit world comes down, shapeshifts into a human, and starts to kind of mess with Semele's mind, like telling Semele, like, I don't know, girl, are you sure this man's who your baby daddy is, who he says he is? Do you really think it's Zeus? So Semele, in her gaslit state, gets very upset and decides to confront Zeus and ask him to prove to her that he is actually Zeus. Now, at this time, there was this like rule, this like law of the gods, that if they were to expose their full might to a human, it would like incinerate the human instantly. The human eyes couldn't handle it. And Zeus is telling Semele, I can't do that. It will kill you. Meanwhile, she's pregnant, but she can't. She has to see that it's really Zeus. And so he appears before her. She incinerates. He takes the fetus Dionysus out of her and puts it in his thigh, because that's a fun place to grow a baby. Is a thigh.
You know what? Sorry, just about that thigh story. That's apparently considered spiritually the male womb. Which is very interesting.
Too. And I don't know why that would be the case. I read that as well. I was wondering if you would know more about that, about why the thigh would be considered the
But
womb.
I've heard that before a lot. I mean, I've actually heard that quite a few times in my life. And if any of the viewers know why the male thigh is considered the womb, that would be very interesting to know. And on that topic, I have to say, sorry, just to intervene here as well. I'm loving the comments and everyone from the different places. Morné has popped out in the different parts of the world, I have to say. So it's really good to know where you're all from. I mean, there's early on the lady from Panama, and I'm sitting here thinking, wow, who would have thought? Right? All your Yanks as well. Very good to know where you are. Nice to see where you're at. So maybe pop that in the chat. Where you from? Where
I know we got Michigan, Boston, New Orleans down there. So I know Silver Linings. Yeah. So y'all, yeah, this is what I'm saying. We're like we're like the global boxcar children. We're the besties that are we're on the case. We're, you know, the three-letter agency's got nothing on us. we hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. Florida, awesome. Well,
nice.
yeah, I was going to ask more.
Yes, Scotty. I was about to say Scotty, and then your name popped up. We got an Aussie in here as well. You should be sleeping, Scotty.
He's on the case with us. He's not going to sleep until we crack this case of what the hell is going on with this messed up group of people and why the hell the thigh is the womb of the man. I was going to ask Morné.
Scotty, tell us. Tell us, Scotty.
Morné, before he popped off, Morné, do you get cramps in your thighs once a month? Do your thighs bloat once a month? Like these bad. I was going to ask you as a man, do your thighs cramp once a month?
Vampire. What does that mean? Gosh. Well, you're a vampire. Creature of night. You come to the right place, Scotty. You come to the right place. Sorry, I get lost.
Yeah, we're like that cartoon we had when I was a child, Captain Planet, where all these people had these different rings and they put them on. And when our powers combine, I am Captain Planet. When our powers combine, we solve this shit. Like we get this.
That was my favorite.
Captain Planet. Yeah,
I love it.
I was gonna say, so before you popped off, we were saying that the male thigh is considered the womb of the male anatomy, and that's where that's where Zeus put Dionysus after his mama died. And I was just gonna laugh and be like, Morné, do you get cramps in your thighs once a month? Do your thighs bloat once a month?
Maybe not once a month, but once in a while. I did do that. That's
yeah. Something weird's going on with the thighs once a month. It's like, how many little girls have you known who got their period for the first time and thought they were hemorrhaging? They had no idea what was going on. It's like, where is all this coming from? But that's what happened, y'all. He grew. I mean, does it grow a belly on the thigh? I don't know. It's kind of a boil. I don't know. But Dionysus, so he was born of Zeus at that point because his mama got incinerated by his daddy. Talk about some screwed up childhood trauma. Like if you're telling your therapist that my mama got incinerated, my daddy spied on my mama, he shapeshifted into an eagle.
And then you wonder where as humans got all our traumas from. It's from these old schools up there, like Jaeger yonder, light years away. It's all their fault.
Like, I mean, what a freaking pervert. Like the fact that you got to shapeshift to watch a woman bathe. Like you're Zeus. You got a gazillion lovers. You can't just pull a woman the old fashioned way by buying her dinner first. Like what's going on? You know, now I'm going to be paranoid when I'm swimming in the river. If I see some angel or some animals watching, I'm going to be, you out of here, Zeus. It's not for your eyes. I know your story. So anyway,
probably a lot more than Zeus too, I'll have you all know.
Humans are way better than some of these gods. Let me just put it that way. Some of these Greek gods, man, they are way more.
Well, where do you think human beings came from, right? We came from them. So
well, that's
we all got a little bit of that touch of the craziness in us.
It comes Zeus, that's who it comes from. Well, that was crazy. So Dionysus was born half man, half God. So that's just like Jesus, right? Son of God, son of man, right? So when he was a little boy, Dionysus, this is where we're going to get into how the body gets pulled apart of the child in the ceremonies. Dionysus was literally pulled apart by the Titans. All right. And so Zeus being like, oh, hell no, you don't do that to my kid, like incinerated the Titans. And from the rebuilding of the ashes came man. So that's where the dualistic, their concept, because I do believe in the dualism of man, the spirit, and the body, the opposing force. But listen, y'all, all y'all listen. The Yoga Sutras, when they talk about opposing forces and dualism of man, they're literally talking about your own shit and your own struggles. They're not talking about some god being incinerated with some titans. And this is like extreme. This is like, what the fuck extreme. So that's how man came to be. So that's why man has a mortal body from the Titans with its carnal longings and like need to be violent with that spark of God from the souls of Zeus and Dionysus. And so that's where that comes from. Now, the cult of Dionysus, as one scholar had said, is probably one of the older cults and mystery schools. Many scholars believe that it actually predates Greek history, and many scholars believed it originated from another cult. Now, again, we don't know the historical dates, like we said in the beginning, but I thought this was interesting because what they said is this was a wine cult, okay? So, from the website Hellenistica World, I can't speak.com, said that they were the original rite of Dionysus is almost universally held as a wine cult. Now, this is interesting. So this is how they believe it started. So these people in the original cult followed the wine's life cycle, starting with the grape as embodying the living God and how the intoxication is really a possession of God's spirit. So they would watch the grape grow on the vine, and then through its whatever they do to create wine, the death and rebirth of the grape then becomes this potent elixir that's going to give you the intoxication of the God spirit. I thought that was freaking fascinating. I did not. That was wild.
Yeah, that's one of the things. That's what I say. They really, even though it's so gruesome, it's like they're not prepared, or they weren't. Let's talk in the past tense, because I know it has, I wouldn't say evolved, it's devolved. And that's actually something very interesting as well, because part of that, the cannibalism rituals that they do is all about taking something into nothing, right? But they're not prepared to give what they're not prepared to take. That's the whole thing. They know what they're doing, and they, through the initiation, they know what it entails. So they're prepared to do what, it's a fascination with them. And it's exactly that nature, because they so love nature, but at the same time, they despise it, and they harness the cruel energies of nature, the violent aspects of nature. And that's what they harness. They don't, and that's really, I think, what it is. They've chosen to harness the dark side of nature, because anyone who knows nature, you see a lion catching a buck, it's brutal. I saw it once in my life, and I will never do it again. It was brutal to hear that animal shout, and the panic and the bleating is just brutal. My heart can't take that. So what I'm saying is that when you look at that, nature in its raw form is brutal, and animals dismember each other, right?
Yeah.
So they really are following nature, and they know what nature entails. So something in them is okay with that, which is very, very interesting.
It is like a devolution too, because when we look at like the law of one, like animals are second density. So they're not in the density of choice. They're in the density of living off of nature. Right. And I've seen the street dogs in India tear rats apart, but they only take the animals that they want to eat. But when you get the third density, which is the human density, then we have choice. And so we have the conscious choice to act in a more peaceful way that serves humanity, in a more selfish way that serves our own desires. And that's what's leading us to either fourth density negative or fourth density positive. And the law of one says both paths are of equal value. So it's literally the choice of what you want to experience. And so that's why a lot of, to be in these cults, you really, and to function in these cults. I know some people are born into these cults and they escape and they have mental breakdowns. And I think those are people who actually have souls, right? The people that thrive in these cults have to be somewhat psychotic.
Yeah, they're completely disconnected from that love part of them. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist in them, but it's there. But very interesting as well, talking about nature and the blood sacrifices and stuff that they give. Now, I've also known this a long time, is that when we were told, I remember in your pot plants, give them blood from your meat. They thrive.
Oh, interesting.
Very interesting. So if you look at nature, there where there's been the most bloodshed is actually where the vegetation is the greenest, and it actually grows the most lush. So they give back to nature as she gives to them. And they can see, and I don't know how they got that conclusion. I didn't see that. I was actually looking for it, as to why nature, and maybe someone can tell us why nature loves blood so much, because it's true. When there's bloodshed and when you give blood to the earth, plants thrive.
It might be because of its sacredness, because of the blood. So like both Shanti and I are both O negative, but if you were to look at our blood panels, it would show two totally different DNA makeups, composites. So within the blood, like I always think about blood as being the literal expression of the energy of prana, because it literally runs through you in that very physical way. And it might have something to do with that element of like magic in blood, because blood can't exist if there's no life, right? So it might be and that's what, when we talk about a lot of like the human sacrifices, especially with the purest, the children and the animals, it's giving that life force over to Lucifer, because Lucifer can't create life force on his own. So he, darkness can't create it, can just mimic the light. So there's a lot of that just taking of energy in order. And of course you get financial wealth and popularity and a repayment for that. But yeah, they follow this. Now this I found out because we know that there are two animals that are really very much like, we see them as mascots for the satanic religion, which is not fair to these animals because these animals didn't ask for this. And that's the bull and the goat. So this comes from Dionysus, because they would take the horn of the bull and the skin of the goat to create the wine glass to drink out of. So that is the start of these. And listen, I don't want to own a pet bull. I think that'd be a lot of responsibility, but I would love to own goats, because goats are freaking hysterical. I think goats are some of the funniest animals. They're so funny. And I just want goats. They just crack me up. And
they're delightful. Have you seen goats? The next thing you see a goat is on your roof, and you have no idea how that thing got on there. It can't get off, but it got up there, and there was no ways it either scaled that wall or it jumped. Have you seen goats walk on their back legs? Like literally.
Mountains, like high steep mountains, and they just kind of stand there and like,
they walk on two legs. You can see goats. That's why when the African people, obviously goat obviously being a symbol of Lucifer, Baphomet, whatever as well. So that's why a lot of African people are scared, because you got to know goats are strong in the African culture. So they'll see many goats. I mean, my one Malawian friend brought me videos, right, of a goat in Malawi. He says, Shanti, look here. Show me the picture of this goat walking on its back legs. He says, I think it's got the devil in him. I said, don't speak rubbish.
Those go. Well, that's the thing too, right? The darkness can't create anything; only the light can. So God created these, and the Luciferians are like, "That's mine now." Like they just take it. And goats, like goats.
I'll take that. Thanks.
I'll take that. But don't goats too like play dead? Like they like get scared and
Yes,
see those videos where like goats and a car drives by, they all just go.
They are hilarious, and they scream like babies. They sound different. The little ones are very, when they bleat, it sounds completely different to a sheep. Completely. They sound like little babies crying. Really, they do. I don't know if you guys in the chat. Yeah, you hear them. I mean, I on the farm had them all the time. Little Angora goats. They sound like little babies.
It's walking on its hind legs, sound like a baby.
I think it's got the devil in it.
I know it's got the devil in it. That's why it can mimic a human. No, you guys. Our audience know that these poor animals, the serpent too, like they're literally, goats are literally the funniest fucking animals that they crack me up. They've been like so blasphemed by these, because they use their skin for You know, and I will say there was one time many years ago, this is long before I even went to India, I was babysitting for someone, and I was sitting at their kitchen table with their kids. This was like mid-morning, like around this time now in Atlanta. And I looked out the window and there were all these goats in the backyard, and their backyard all of a sudden eating this weeds and grass. And I text the person, I was like, there are goats in your backyard. I mean, we're in the middle of a city. Turns out that in Atlanta, Georgia, there's a company that you can hire if you have like overgrown weeds or some land you need to like take. They'll send goats. They bring goats to your property as long as it's fenced in, and let the goats just come and eat all the. Yeah, that's a company in Atlanta does that. I don't know the name, but it was a ton of goats, and
sheep as well. Yeah, they do that with sheep around here as well.
I just sat at that window and watched the goats just bucking each other and eating, and it was fantastic. But yeah,
so you got to clean up their poop afterwards.
I was there to change the human diapers, not the goat diapers. That's somebody else's responsibility.
At least that's natural. I'm actually enjoying the comments here, and it actually makes sense to you guys that have left comments. It really is, obviously, blood is a life force, living force, and so Earth would appreciate that. It's just interesting for me to understand what exactly got them to click into that. Was it because they observed it, or did some God tell them? Did Mother Nature tell them, right? Who told them I want blood?
Dionysus might have told them, for all we know.
Exactly, and also specifically menstrual blood. For them, that was, at the time of the menstrual cycle, and because that's obviously, anyone who knows anything about that is the woman's most powerful time of the month, right?
Yeah.
Where you actually at your heightened state. So you either heightened in pain and discomfort. And if you can move through that, your pain body, right? Because that symbolizes your pain body, your bloated state, right? And then you can move through that, and then you move into that absolute pool of water. Right. You float, you get it, you understand it, you tuned in. There's not a word for it, but you understand what I'm saying. I'm in mental pause.
Can I tell you guys something?
We should be in mental pause too, the Tippinator.
I'll tell you guys something really, really gross that I've recently learned. We talked about love spells, like don't do love spells, guys. That's pathetic. But part of sex magic is so gross. Women will take their cycle and cook it into food to feed the man. Like that is so gross.
It's the big thing here, and I know this is a nasty topic, really it is, but here in South Africa, there are people collecting used menstrual products and paying big money for them.
So gross.
And that makes,
So men, if a woman ever serves you spicy spaghetti, might want to rub. Well, I mean, we're sharing inconvenient truths, right?
Absolutely. I want to see how the viewers are going to go down. We've just lost the viewer.
When I found that out, I was like, I did not, y'all. Like with the stuff I found out, I was like, I am such a good person. Like I've never done any of this shit. I've never thought about doing this shit. I am y'all watching right now, we are really good people. The women watching right now who've never tried to do that shit, you're a good person.
Yeah, exactly.
Disgusting.
Anyway,
don't do this with us. So anyway,
basically the woman's menstrual cycle is definitely her most powerful time. And so that would make sense that they would use that blood as well.
When you think about when a woman is pregnant, that lining of the uterus, which is what that is what's actually protecting and nourishing the baby as well. So it is very powerful and potent, and it has to replenish itself each month in order to keep it fresh in case a new child is conceived. And so it's so you can see how the power of that from the good side of creating life, of giving life to another. The woman's womb is a portal for another being to come through. But then they take it to the other extent where they're aggressively taking it for someone without their consent and using it to nourish their own prosperity in life versus where it's intended to go to. But anyway, so we know that this started off as a wine cult of these people trying to figure out or watching the life cycle of wine. And they believe that this reached Greece in around 1600 BC. Now, again, take these dates with a grain of salt, but this is what the academia says. Now, they believe that the wine cult actually started, though, around 6000 BC. Again, take the date with a grain of salt in either the Zagros Mountains, which borders Mesopotamia and Persia, or the mountains of Libya, North Africa, where they started growing wine. Now, and I said this on I really feel like it's probably a combination of both, because we see that in the world where there's like a collective consciousness, where even though the people over in the Zagros Mountains aren't communicating with the mountains of Libya, there's a collective understanding. It's like the 100 monkeys theory, where you can have 100 monkeys doing one thing on one side of the world, and all of a sudden the monkeys on the other side of the world start doing it too. It's this collective energetic. So I think it's probably a bit of both, where the wine people started figuring out that they could do things with grapes, and so with the import and export of wine, so all these thousands of years later, give or take the time again, they started to import and export this. Like, wine is still a huge business, right? It's still a huge enterprise. And that's when it came to Greece. And then it started to evolve with the god Dionysus. That's when it started to get a little bit more sinister. It was probably already had some sinister undertones, because like attracts like. And I'm not saying that every body in Greece that was buying wine was doing the Dionysus. No, this was an elite group of people that were doing this. All right, so should we talk about what we know about initiation into this cult, this fun group of people? Like I said, without all the shape-shifting and the human sacrifices and cannibalism, this sounds like a fun Friday night to me. Just all the other stuff is not what's fun. So they did have the death and rebirth ritual that we see in a lot of these different cults, but there's obviously more of the negative side. Their main practice was possession and what's called atavism. And I had to look this up. Atavism is this, and I think we see this with the nefarious groups today. They try to collect the power and knowledge of ancient people, right? So they try to collect on and relive what the ancient, so even though these people are ancient to us, they were doing it for their ancient people. And I would probably think that in some of these controller groups and cults, they're probably doing the same thing. We know they're trying to harness from the Egyptian mystery schools. Like, we know Thoth was a good person, a good entity that got used and inverted by the bad. So it seems like they're still doing that atavism. So they would take the wine and they would use it to become drunk. I mean, why else would you drink wine? But in this manner.
Interesting that, because part of their belief, and which I actually heard, was is Brice okay, or was it me? Oh, okay, yeah. Sorry, I just looked like it was hanging. Is that the wine, because obviously their whole objective is to get out of the body, right? So they would and to leave yourself or be released of yourself, that sort of energy, right? So things like drugs, wine, getting drunk, right, would be one of the reasons they would celebrate and get drunk and debauched, because then your barriers come down, and then you do things. Yeah, and then, but isn't that interesting? Because that's when you're looking at the ghoul, the Latin word is the ghoul, alcohol or something.
Spirits, yeah.
Yeah, those alcohol demons, because then they'll take over you when you're non-compos mentis. And that's why a lot of people will have alcoholic blackout. They might not remember the whole evening or parts of the evening, because they literally have left their body. And while they've gone, something else has taken over that body and got them to do some really crazy shit. And I've seen that a lot over the years with alcohol and drugs even more so than alcohol. So that was part of that, is that you can release yourself and, from your body and just be free.
That ecstatic moment.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
will say too,
Sex magic, right?
It's like, yeah, and I would say too, also my perspective of alcohol as well is, again, when we talk about these things, like even like astrology, all channeling, it's all a tool. So like alcohol is a tool. And like for me at 40, I've never had a night where I've blacked out ever. Like I've never gotten mean drunk, and I'm not an alcoholic. I'll drink maybe once, a few times a year is when I'll drink. I don't crave alcohol. It's not a problem with me. And so I feel like there's an intention behind it. Like these people intentionally were trying to be possessed by spirits. And I've said this before, like a lot of people I think have this misunderstanding where they think you can just be bopping around and a spirit can just like possess you. There is an invocation that they would do. Like they would actually, I mean, I have it here. They would do particular dance moves, and they would do, oh, yep. Well, this is, Amy, this is the origins of Catholicism, which we're going to get more into next week.
I also thought about that. When I thought about the wine at the Catholic Church and drinking the wine I thought this was the connection.
I'll say when I was in my 20s, I tried really hard to be like a sophisticated wino because, you know, women know all their wines. I'm way too vada for that shit. I cannot do wine. It gives me a freaking migraine. I have to go straight for the rum. So you know, but think about what is the wine representation? What is that in church? Or it's juice in Protestant churches, but it's the blood of Jesus, right? It's that life force of Dionysus, of Zeus, because Jesus is of Zeus, of that spirit, right? That they're giving you. It's that representation. So they would do
but
these.
It just makes such sense, especially the finger leg. Oops, where did I go? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
sorry, I don't know what I did. I pressed something on my computer. Especially Finger Lakes. Isn't there all sorts of dodgy things happening at Finger Lakes?
I don't know.
Because doesn't man have a tattoo on his back of Finger Lakes? Something happens at Finger Lakes, and I'm not sure what. So
if you'll remind me, I'll look into that. Oh, I just had that go by me. I don't know if y'all saw that go by me, but that's what's so fun about filming on Zoom and StreamYard. You can actually see what's going on behind you. Yeah, but they would literally, so guys, they would get drunk and intentionally do invocations to bring upon the demonic spirits to inhabit them in order to get, this was intentional. You know, we look at the Elysian mystery schools, they were giving people like ayahuasca and peyote. Let me tell you guys, you're not going to do ayahuasca and peyote to have a fun time. That's not a party drink. That's not something, people have to build up their mental space before doing that, because it's going to bring out your shadow work. Whereas this was the total polar opposite. This was knock down, drag out, blackout drunkenness, intentionally invocating spirits to possess. Now, once they were possessed, it is said that they practiced shape-shifting. They would call in particular spirits, what that would give them the power to transform into animals. The most popular of these was the matador. And I've seen the matador before. That is where this comes from. And I want to say again, shape-shifting within itself is not inherently bad, right? It depends on what the person is doing it for. They were doing this for nefarious purposes. Then the members of this cult, they felt like they had been tricked by Mother Nature, so they were willing to do anything to escape themselves. After the summoning of the spirits were complete and they had done their shifty things, the cult would then offer sacrifice. This was either in the form of a small child or a young animal. Their bodies were pulled apart and the blood used to fertilize the ground. Then they would participate in cannibalism, taking the life force of the sacrifice, and then they would end in a group orgy, because why not? When you've done all of that.
On that point of cannibalism, I found that quite interesting, because cannibalism, really the deeper meaning, what they're talking about here as well, is if you want to embody the qualities or the energy of the other person, you consume them, right? Yep. So in that consumption, because in their cult, excess and nothing are very, very, very working very strongly together, because they believe in everything that is excess, right? So excess would be that cannibalism as well. So whoever is being consumed is being returned to nothingness, right? And nothing for them is a very big thing. It's a very, that whole dichotomy, if you will, the excess and the nothingness. So that's very good. That's a very big thing for them, because when you regress, like obviously it's about regression. So you regress, and when you regret, and that's why through the destructive nature of regression, like, right, you regress into that nothing state.
Evolution, yeah. They would also do smut as well, what we call smut today, where sometimes the sacrifices wouldn't happen until at the end of the orgy, if you guys know what I mean. So this was a huge devolution in the, couth of society, if you will. And this was what evolved into the Roman Catholic Church. And we're going to get into that. This is what evolved into what we're going to talk about next week, the school next week, and also into Mithraism. So I know a lot of our viewers can probably, as Amy pointed out, can kind of see the correlations between the church and the cult of Dionysus. Now, something interesting too I found was that in 186 BC, now again, take dates with a grain of salt, but in 186 BC, the Roman Senate, they like us, they knew this, they found out this shit was going on, right? The Roman Senate did. And they tried everything they could to outlaw this cult, but it didn't work. I mean, that is how, and that just goes to show you, because here we are in 2023, and this is we're literally, when we talk about this battle of where we're literally up against the cult of Dionysus. Like, that's what we're up against. I don't think this cult ever stopped.
Do you know what their symbol is? The panda. What? It was the panda, which I actually made a note of here. Their totem is the panda. And then they have the pine cone topped scepter as well.
Which is a penis. Yeah.
And to me, that's also interesting, just in terms of the adrena, right? Because of the pineal gland as well. Which, very, very interesting. So,
that's the crazy thing is that. Oh, I can see you. I see you.
Yeah, no, I forgot to plug my laptop in, and for once I have power, so let me just get myself power.
There we go. Powered up.
What's fascinating is, like, academia, these scholars think that this cult has, like, disappeared, right? That they're no longer doing their shit. There she is. She's back. I was saying, Conti, it's just fascinating. Academia, they think this cult just disappeared over time. And I think all of us are like, no, they didn't. They continued passing down these practices. This were elite practices of, like, all these major world powers, and it just spread. Because here's the thing, it's what they're doing. Listen, I've said this before. The controllers are many things, but stupid is not one of them. And these practices have given them world domination for a very long time. So there's obviously a payout for them to do this. And the fact that even back historically, whether this date is correct or not, over 2,000 years ago, the Roman Empire tried to outlaw this, only to become this later on, a few centuries later, shows you how big of a battle this has actually been. And again, as we saw in the Emerald Tablets, these tablets were written for us at this time because this is the time of reckoning, right? And I was actually walking with my boyfriend yesterday, who's been awake for a really long time, and I was like, do you think the controllers ever realized that we would figure it out? Do you think they ever calculated they've gone all this time doing these terrible things in these secret societies, and now their secret societies ain't so secret anymore? And once these whistleblowers started, like, telling their stories, people like us, the three of us and our friends, our Nancy Drew friends across the world, started doing research and going like, wait a minute here, let's connect the dots, because this is just shit ain't new. You guys have been doing this.
They are very smart. They knew it was inevitable. They even knew times will come, and they were trying to. It was all about prolonging it, seeing how far they can go. But like you said, they are anything but stupid. They knew it was going to be inevitable for us to go through certain, they know our archetype, they know our level of consciousness, they know how humans evolve, they respond. They knew at what stage we're going to probably get awakening again, and they were like countering it and stuff like that. They were freaking smart, but inevitable.
And they know we have something they don't, and that's empathy. They know that and that's their superpower, that they don't have empathy and compassion. That's for us. It's their superpower that they don't have empathy and compassion, and it's our superpower that we do have empathy and compassion.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
I will say I was watching Rose McGowan. She's an actress here in America who has been very outspoken about this. They call it the Hollywood cult, right? It's the same thing. The controllers. And this reporter, she was calling out Alyssa Milano, who she did the show Charmed with, because Alyssa Milano started the Me Too movement. Well, Alyssa Milano is married to a CIA agent, which is basically the biggest pimp of Hollywood. And she was calling her out. The journalist was saying, she was saying that she thinks they're all liars and that they're all the problem. And the journalist said to Rose McGowan, you're messing with some pretty powerful people. And she goes, yes, they are powerful. And then she paused, and then she goes, but so am I. And so that's what we have to remember is, yes, they are powerful. This shit they do. And I've told people before, it doesn't matter if you believe in Lucifer. It doesn't matter if you believe in Dionysus. The point is they do. And because they do believe in this stuff, it becomes even more potent. And so we cannot, and I think that's something we have to always remember, is that these people are not stupid, but neither are we. And so even by us talking about it, we're shifting the consciousness, and we see their desperate grab to try to keep people under control. By the way, I mean, right now it is so obvious with the gaslighting and the mainstream media, and like what they're trying to do to continue to keep a lid on everything and just keep control. It's like they don't even care that we know now. They're just trying to keep control of the reins at this point. And so that's our secret power, is just to keep loving people, to keep talking about it, to laugh in their face. Like, they worship a God that is literally so pathetic and so perverted that he had to shapeshift to watch a woman bathe. Like, that's pathetic, So we just got to keep laughing at them and praying for the people that have gotten caught in their rituals, and understand that this is very real. This is not a mystery school of the past, right? This is very much still going on today. And next week, we're going to get into the reformation of this mystery school, which is going to give you even more insight into why this is what the church is doing. And again, I want to reiterate that for those in the back that didn't hear, Yeshua, the real person who came and taught the teachings of the Christ, is not who I'm referring to when I speak of the church. As Shanti has said so beautifully, the church is the infiltrator. They are the infiltrator. They infiltrated their teachings into something that was that is very powerful and very peaceful for man. And they tried to infiltrate that. But guess what? Yeah. We're going to take that story back. So
taking it back as we speak.
And we're doing it while we look really cute at the same time. So
you're such a Southern belle, Brice.
We're gonna do it with a smile on our face with our lipstick on,
and you do it so well, honey. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Wow. Very interesting little topic that we had today, and I was just looking to see if I had still anything, but I think we've kind of covered the most of it, right? Just very interesting about the cannibalism and the embodiment and the excess and the nothing, because that's the whole cycle of life for them. And that's why I think it, for me, even though I certainly don't like it, and rest assured, if there was anything like that even close to me, I'd be running a mile, 10 miles. But when one observes from the outset, there's something quite honest about it. As you say, the dismembering in honor of, was it whoever it was that was dismembered?
Yeah, it was the creation of man, because he got dismembered by the Titans. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. So then, you know, that's the dismemberment of the animals. It's the dismemberment of the children, each other. But it's done in a sense that it's given back to the violence of the earth. They honor Mother Nature's violent side. And
could you imagine being a part of a mystery school where you just showed up and didn't know whether you were it or not? Like, that would be really stressful that you're the one that are going to be sacrificed. Like, that would be real stressful, y'all. I'd rather just do some peyote and sit with some sisters in a temple overnight and do my peyote. And I'd way rather do that. Like, that is not.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, so, but we can see the potency and how this is passed down generation to generation too, and it just becomes normal for them to experience these crazy rituals. And so I would love to hear what our audience, like, if you guys, and again, if you go on my channel, I have a ton of videos on Mardi Gras, which is where Dionysus, so people from my channel probably recognize this because we spoke a little bit about, not in the detail of the mystery school a few years ago, but with the celebration of Mardi Gras, and that it is the celebration of Dionysus. So I mean, the king cake, the baby in the cake, you know, it's yeah. So yeah.
Mardi Gras is really a place I've always wanted to go to. It always looks such fun.
Well, and I will say, I've said on my channel so many times, if you are from New Orleans and Mardi Gras is a part of your life, if you're not hurting anybody, if you're just out there laughing with your friends and family and celebrating and eating good food, I see nothing wrong with that, because where there's love, where there's laughter, there is God. And so I'm very much like, I'm not one of those people that's like, we have to destroy everything. I think, no, we can take it back, you know.
I mean, you don't have to go to the dodgy temples and things. In fact, stay away from anything like that. Just go eat and go dance. Go boogie.
And wear your fancy costumes and drink and have fun with your family and, you know, just have fun. Yeah. So
yeah,
definitely 9% of the people who celebrate Mardi Gras, that's what they're doing. And God bless you. It's a good time. So
exactly. Party on. We have to have fun.
We have to
enjoy it. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, with all you inner thigh little wombs out there, I want to say thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. One day we'll understand, you guys. I think you've got a whole lot of secret little compartments that we girls know nothing about. Apparently, this has been since forever.
Dylan, what's his name? Dylan the guy that's pretending to be a girl.
Dylan Mulvaney. I can't even. Is that his name? I don't think I've ever said.
He could be like, dude, you need a tampon for your thigh. Because you don't have a vagina, but you got a thigh, and that's apparently.
Somebody should educate the poor boy on that show.
Probably going to be a pad instead of a tampon, babe.
That's like a fancy Band-Aid.
Like one of those heat pads or cool pads.
My boyfriend once was in a grocery store as a child, and he had 2 older sisters, and he held up a box of maxi pads and asked his mom if he could have the fancy Band-Aids too, because he knew his sisters had the fancy
Band-Aids.
I was like, I want the fancy Band-Aids too. So.
Well, on that fancy note, we shall love and leave you. We shall see you back next week with Brice. On Wednesday with Brice. Tomorrow we have Tom Althouse. Thursday we got a fantastic new guest. Caleb Jade is his name. Someone who knows a lot about a lot of things. So tune in, guys. And Double Jessie on Wednesday as well. So look forward to seeing you all quite a lot this week. I'll try to behave, I promise, but maybe not. See you all soon.
Ciao.